In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a brass ring leather bracelet. So for this project you need some leather. This is a 1-inch leather strip. You can choose whatever color, whatever thickness you want. You can modify the design. I'm going to be using a brass ring and what's called a hitch fastener. These hitch fasteners, I actually found them in the scrapbooking section, whereas this was more in jewelry or maybe making things like a purse, something like that. So to cut the leather, when we put the detail in it, I like using the rotary tool for the straight edges. The X-Acto knife works pretty well when you've got any kind of detail work to do. And ideally you'd have a leather punch to do this work. I don't actually have one, so I'm going to show you what I do to get a similar result. I use a couple of drill bits with my drill and a couple of boards and some clamps. It's a mess, but it works. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and size the wristband. And the way we do that, we know that the brass ring is going to be right on the top, the showpiece of the bracelet, along with the leather here. We're going to take a bit of this leather strapping and wrap it back on itself. Okay, we're going to attach the ball hitch right about here, and then the rest of this will wrap around and then be able to seal on that ball hitch there. But to find out exactly where we need to drill our holes, we're first going to size it up here. So you can flip your wrist over. So if we take all these pieces, cinch it up pretty nice and tight. Let's verify that this is on here. The leather will stretch a little bit, so you want it to be fairly snug. Right. Okay. And we're going to have this overlap just a little bit. Okay. Then you can take, in your mind you can see your hitch is going to end up being here. And we've got 3 overlapping pieces right here in the middle. So I'm going to mark where it is that I want to drill my hole for my clove hitch. I know it's just in the center of my strap, and then if I make the mark on the edges of these ones, I can come back and drill the holes for them. So once you've marked it out on your wrist, I transferred the marks from the edges to my piece here, and I'm showing you here what a finished, well, mostly finished piece will look like. There's going to be a larger hole for the hitch on the end of your bracelet. There's a smaller hole for the hitch to fit through, and another smaller hole for the hitch to fit through. This piece will actually end up overlapping itself like this. Oops, with the ring inside there. And then when you come around the back, that will hitch up over the hitch like that. Right. And so I want to make these cutouts on either side of where I marked points for the hitch. So on this one I only want it on this side, on this one on both sides, this one just that side. And I'm going to show you how I do that without using a punch. So I take a piece of wood and I start to make a template. On the template I'm marking where the holes are going to be on the leather. I'm transferring that onto the template. I'm marking my distance from the center hole is where the hitch fastener is going to go. The holes on the edges are about a 1/2 inch, 5/8 of an inch further apart. Okay, and now I'm taking the drill bit, 1/4 inch and 1/8 inch holes, drilling all the way through this for my template. You overlay the leather on that template, squish it between another piece of wood and clamp it fast. Be careful the leather doesn't shift. Then you go to the back side of the template and you drill out the leather. And what you're left with are some fairly decent holes. I find if you try and do this without like if you just try and hold the leather, it'll just twist up around the drill, unless your drill's really sharp, I suppose, which is kind of dangerous, so I wouldn't recommend trying that. I also find that when you don't use the wood on either side, you don't get as clean of a hole, right? So once you got your holes drilled, then you can move on to the next part, which is going to be connecting the larger holes to cut out the center cutouts. I use the rotary tool for the longest bit of it, and then I like to use this little knife for just finishing the edges. I'm going to speed up this part a little bit, but you can see that I'm just taking out the center cutouts. And I'm using my utility knife to do a little bit of trim work on the ends. Here I'm removing the excess on the ends. I'm cutting off, leaving from the hitch point to the end about 1/2 inch, 5/8 of an inch. So now what you're going to do is add the hardware. You put the leather through the brass ring so that the good side of the leather is facing outwards on the loop, and then when you put your hitch fastener through, you should have the ball end of the hitch fastener be on the short side of that loop facing out. Okay, and you do this so that when you lay it on your wrist, you can wrap it all the way around, loop it through, and come back and hitch it. I found out here that my hitch was a little bit too small, so I'm going to re-drill it with a slightly larger diameter hole. So that's it. Just put the brass ring on the top of your wrist, loop the leather through the ring, and then hitch it to the hitch on the bottom. Looks pretty good, although I must say it does look better on my wife.